Welcome, welcome. Happy Monday. This is Deb, Vibration Training Specialist, and today is kind of a special session for me and something I've been working with for some time. This month in the US is National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, and there's a few events going on. There are other cerebral palsy awareness events. October 6th is like the World Day, but in the US, this month, the month of March, you should be wearing green, not just because it's St. Patrick's Day, but it is the green ribbon is the traditional color for cerebral palsy. A lot of people looking into treatments or therapeutic options for cerebral palsy are aware of vibration machines. And today I want to talk to you about a couple of things. We're going to do a little bit of awareness about CP, give you some information for those of you that may not be familiar with the condition. And I'm going to show you a couple of things. I run a rather large support group where I incorporate support for those of you that are dealing with cerebral palsy or supporting someone with it. And we use vibration machines, vibration guns, all kinds of different things. And Lifepro happens to be one of those companies that provides a lot of very quality products, ideal for that consumer using these things at home. So if you've been looking at doing some home therapy, vibration plates, there is a world of research. Research aside, people have been using these machines for decades to treat symptoms, to manage pain in particular. And with cerebral palsy, depending on the type that you're dealing with, and we're going to get into some of the types here a little bit later on, there are a number of things that you can benefit from incorporating some of these simple tools just to help manage the symptoms. I had some links, a little bit of science here. I just want to make sure that I have sent that to my lovely Lauren in the background. I don't remember if I sent her an email here with some links. 1 second. Thank you for your patience. Here I was being earlier that I've never been more organized for a session because I talk cerebral palsy so often using these plates. And here I am forgetting to send my critical information. I don't think that I did. Okay, no big deal. We're going to get back to the stream anyways. I will post a link. There is an article on Lifepro's blog from last year with some interesting science, which I am going to go over, and I'll post some of these in the links. I don't think that I sent them to you, Lauren, earlier. So CP, if you're dealing with CP, one of the big things, especially if you're dealing with a child, I would say 80 to 90% of the users that I support on a vibration machine are children. And some of them are very young children. There is no black and white rules or guidelines. There is a bit of an industry that is lacking when it comes to whole body vibration machines, but they're not a separate thing. A vibration machine is a tool that makes your exercises easier, potentially offers more benefit in less time. So whether you're training for an Ironman competition or you're using it to treat the symptoms or do exercises associated with CP, it's simply a tool. So I just wanted to point that out first of all. There are different types of movement in vibration plates. There are two favorite tools I like to recommend with vibration or with cerebral palsy. The first is a vibration plate, and I'm also a big fan of using massage guns. And I'll get into some work with the massage guns and do a little bit of demonstration on that after we talk about some information and use the machine. So for those of you that have never joined me before, and for those of you that have, I apologize if I'm sounding like a broken record. But yet again, I am starting in a seated position. With cerebral palsy is a brain disorder, and it affects a person's movement and their ability to maintain balance and posture. There's generally a lot of weakness in the core. Leg strength is an issue. Sometimes there's like hypermobile joints or things are out of joint. There's prolapse, all kinds of things that go on when you're dealing with structure issues. And sometimes standing exercises, if you're not able to bear weight, which is pretty common with a lot of my customers dealing with CP, or if you are able to bear weight, it's maybe not for long periods. The last thing we want to do is fatigue you or cause you any exhaustion from doing your exercises. And in fact, using a vibration plate for cerebral palsy, or any of you that are dealing, special needs is a big category. And, whether you're dealing with cerebral palsy, MS, a lot of these things are neurologically related, and the way that you use a vibration machine and some of the exercises that you might be using for strength or better mobility or balance are not going to change regardless of the condition. So focus more in on those symptoms. And even within cerebral palsy, there's 4 different types of cerebral palsy. There's a whole range of symptoms from mild to severe. So depending on the body that you're putting on the plate or that you're treating, there's a couple of things I want to point out. Lots of different motion styles out there, even within Lifepro's lineup. There's oscillating, there's pulsation, there's lateral. The primary movement or the fundamental starting movement that started the world of whole body vibration is oscillating, where you're moving side to side, like you're walking across the floor. It's a more functional, natural movement. So all of my coaching is in oscillating, but the moves can be done in any mode. That's just variety. So depending on your height, I want you, when you're seated on the plate, which is our starting position, I want your feet no more than hip width apart. The distance between your feet or your hands, if you're doing upper body positions, is going to change or drive the intensity. So a lot of people think I'm going to start slow or I'm going to go fast. I'm going to be somewhere in the middle. Your speeds, your levels, those are different than the amplitude of your machine. The amplitude is how much you're moving with each motion of the plate. So if you're finding it too strong or too intense, or you're dealing with a shorter body, bring your feet closer to the center, certainly no more than hip width apart if you are dealing with deficiencies. And what I would suggest, if you're starting a plate for the first time, start in a mid to higher speed or level. The really, really slow movements on an oscillating plate are very jarring. They're very slow. They're very choppy. It's not like a treadmill. And if you're dealing with pain, spasticity, just muscle tension in general, sometimes being too wide with your feet is too jarring or too uncomfortable. And to modify that, the first adjustment is bringing your feet closer. So stay true to your speed. If you're working with a machine that's, let's say, got 100 speed levels, I want you in the 50 to 70 range to start. And I speak in ranges because I want you to mix it up every week. There is no magic number or setting or program for CP. It's the body that we're dealing with, and week over week, consistent, regular use is really the key to success and accessing the benefits. But your body gets used to anything after a period of time. So you want to make sure that you're progressing and you're not letting your body get too used to any one speed. So mix it up in that range when you're first starting out. And in a seated position, you're going to get some good circulation. You're going to get some lymphatic movement. If you're dealing with tight muscles or prolapse in the legs, sometimes standing on the plate can be fearful when you're first starting out. The first addition I want to show you, I talked about in the preview today, there's some top exercises that I recommend you use your vibration plate for if you're dealing with CP or if you're dealing with any kind of special need or deficiency that mimics the benefits I'm trying to outline. So a lot of times when you're dealing with CP, you moms and dads are going to know, and those caregivers, we look like this, where those knees are coming in or the ankles are collapsing inwards. And even more, if you're using a vibration plate, it's probably the number one question. How do I keep the knees? Or you want to try and keep things in alignment. And again, we're not standing on the plate with our feet wider than hip width apart. It's unnatural. I want you thinking functional first. So if mobility is a concern or fatigue, can't bear weight for long periods, your kid has a ball somewhere in their room. This one is deflated a little bit. I don't want it so tight that the second your legs start moving, it goes flying out of your kid's legs. And what we're going to do with this, you might want to work with something smaller. I'm a taller body. If you're dealing with a smaller body, you might want to start with something smaller. Perhaps you've got rollers or other toys. But what we're going to simply do with this is we're going to place it just above the knees, and we're going to force those thighs to hang on to it. So this is, the more you can combine into any one exercise, the more you're going to get done in less time and have more family time. So put this just above the knees. The reason we want the air out of it is you want to have a little bit of give, and it's going to keep that natural alignment. Those knees and even the ankles aren't going to collapse in to the same degree. And just practice this. We're talking about little kids to start with. Perhaps you're adults that are dealing with these same issues. But while you're seated on that plate, you've got that ball between your legs, and I want you to practice just 3 to 4 reps of squeezing those legs together and holding that ball in place. So we're going to squeeze the thighs together, hold, 2, 3, relax. And we're going to do that about 3 to 4 times. So hold again, 2, 3, 4, and relax. If you cannot hold for that long a duration, maybe you're just doing a squeeze, release, squeeze, release. I don't want you holding it so long that it feels uncomfortable, but what this is going to do is it's not only going to stop the knees and the ankles from collapsing in, but it's also adding a different level of strength into your muscle group. So instead of it just being when we get to standing, because we're doing that next, but by putting it between the legs, we're tightening, or we're using the muscles on the outer and inner thighs to pull that ball together in between our legs. So it's adding to your basic position. So from here, the next progression, if you're unable to stand at this point, I'm not getting into a lot of detail today, but I do have a private group if you're looking for some support and some guidance. But if your child or you personally are dealing with CP and you're unable to bear weight, there are a number of ways besides the chair that I'm showing you now. Maybe you want to start bearing weight. Perhaps you have lifts or standing cages. There's usually tools that you're already using in your home exercises that can be incorporated with the plate. If your child is small and you're able to support their weight, that's an opportunity for you to, perhaps have them stand for a little bit and sit back down. There's a few other exercises that you're probably already doing on the floor that could be done on the machine. So there's lots of ideas that you can look into. Anything, if you're dealing with something severe, there are actually tilt tables. I've used a punching bag mount with a yoga swing. There's lots of ways that you as a family or a therapist can get creative to slowly start incorporating some weight-bearing exercises, whether your child is capable of doing that on their own or not, or you personally as an adult. So the next progression, my second favorite exercise besides, so sitting in the chair with the ball between the legs, I love this exercise. Probably for the first week or two, when you're starting with a vibration plate, whether you're dealing with CP or you're just new to vibration plates, it takes your body a period of time to kind of get, what is this thing? The body is very reluctant. It's very resistant to change. So, sitting in the chair is going to allow you to get an idea of how the speeds feel, how putting your feet wider or closer feels, without committing to standing on it until you feel comfortable. If your symptoms aren't that severe, they're a little bit milder, and you're able to stand, the next progression of an exercise, and if you're working with CP, you've had knee surgery, one of the common exercises is a sit to stand exercise. And the sit to stand is simply like the title. We're going to go from a sitting position. We're going to shift our weight onto the feet. You want to keep the heels planted, and we're going to slowly stand up, keeping those knees slightly bent. Again, if you're dealing with very poor mobility, limited range of motion, and you're spotting your child, you could put a chair back in front of you or another bar stool to give those fingertips something to hang on to. What I love about Lifepro's plates, I recommend working with a plate with no handles, especially if you are working with mobility equipment. You're not going to want something getting in the way. My machine's telling me that I've rambled already for 10 minutes, so I'm just going to hit go again. If you're able to stand on the plate, just standing on the plate, one of the basic benefits, especially when you're dealing with cerebral palsy, is a core strength, because your body's kind of always stabilizing you on this machine. There's always, work being done to the core. If you're coordinated enough and you're stable standing for a period of time, you can do some pelvic tilts. We tend to be very tight in the core, especially in the hamstrings, which is that'll be my number 3 move is hamstrings. Okay. If you find you're only able to stand for a short period and fatigue is setting in, you can sit back down. I always want you keeping the stool here for fatigue, or maybe you feel unsafe and you're not your balance isn't as comfortable as you'd like it to be. So the stool's a good idea to have just as a safety concern. Or like I say, if you're just getting fatigued and you want to sit down and take a rest is a really good reason. So if you're unable to stand for long periods or standing was not quite comfortable for you yet, and you do like the sitting, but you're able to stand a little bit, try just a couple of the basic sit to stand instead of remaining standing. And that would look something like this. So we're going to stand up, keep the knees slightly bent, and we're going to sit back down. This is a very functional movement. Every time you get up off the couch, every time you get up off the table or the chair at the kitchen table, okay? So this is going to help with leg strength, stability. There's a number of reasons that some of my clients will do this just prior to going to an appointment. A minute or two on a machine is going to give more balance and stability. Short durations are going to build up energy, oxygenate the blood. So one of the big things I recommend is using your machine throughout the course of the day to treat symptoms, if your time allows. So if you notice that the hamstrings are getting really tight, or the mobility is poor, or you feel lethargic, using your machine from a medicinal, therapeutic, whatever you want to call it, it's not always a big program and a routine. For those of you that are working with a therapist and you have an outline of exercises, I'm going to go through a couple more suggestions here today, but what you should be doing on the plate isn't a separate thing that the vibration machine people have come up with. It should mimic exercises that have been outlined by your therapist or your caregivers for your child, because all the children, all the adults, everyone dealing with CP has different symptoms. They have different strengths and they have different weaknesses and deficiencies. So pretty much any machine or any exercise position or stretch can be done on the surface of a vibration machine, perhaps with some modifications. One of the next exercises I want to show you is hamstrings and how to target those. For every single person I've ever dealt with CP, there tends to either be a weakness or a tightness in the hamstrings. So you can spend 20 minutes, an hour stretching and massaging every day, like many of you I know are, but haven't you got better things to do? Wouldn't you rather be doing other things? By doing a proper exercise to target those areas of the body on the machine, you might need a couple of minutes. And for you moms and dads that have these poor children in braces, or you're dealing with tightness in the hamstrings where those legs just won't lay straight in bed, 2 to 3 minutes before bedtime or a half hour before bedtime to relax those muscles, get oxygenation going through the muscle tissue, lymph, all of that is probably going to relax them. And you may notice over the course of a night or two, their legs are going to be completely stretched out. So if you are stable enough and you know how to touch your toes, or that's an exercise that you're doing now, it's a very common one for hamstrings. I would suggest having something to hang on to if you're doing this on your own. If you're spotting your child, turn them sideways. The only reason I suggest doing it sideways is it's less wobble than this way for your first try, okay? Put your heels in the center of the plate. The center of the plate is when your heel is in contact, your heel is what drives the movement. So all I'm feeling is my toes push back a little bit. I don't want this being very scary for the first time you try it. So I'm going to use my left hand to just sort of spot myself. And on this one, you almost do want to lock the legs for a second or two just to get that good stretch in the back of the knees, but you're not going to feel it in the head as if you're standing. So I just want you, more importantly, the legs are straighter than how far you're reaching with your toes. I don't want to see, oh, look at how flexible I am. Your knees are bent. You're cheating. So I want those legs straight, see, straight, and just hang if this is as far as you can go. If you don't feel comfortable, hang on to the stool. I don't want to see you bouncing or pushing. You should feel at this point a nice pull all the way up from almost the ankle, up through the calf, the back of the knee, and right up the hamstring to the top of the glute. And then I want you to stand up slightly, knees bent. We've got a lot of circulation going. If you feel a little bit lightheaded, that's why we have a chair. You can sit down and take a break. If this is comfortable and you're doing this type of exercise now, I would challenge you to try 3 reps. Just hold 3 to 5 seconds and slowly work your way up. Like you're almost making one motion with each of your vertebrae. Nice and slow. So 3 reps on that one. For those of you that are rock stars and that's not too scary, the next variation on that one would be have the stool in front of you. But keep your feet no more than hip width apart. If it's too scary at this point, bring them closer. And just so you can see the other angle, okay? Depending on how flexible you are. And then we're just gonna stand back up. Oh, that feels good. I've been doing too much sitting today. Okay, I forgot one of my props here. 1 second, I just gotta grab my noodles. Okay. One more variation I want to show you before we get down on the ground. Does everybody know what these are? Okay, these are very expensive pool noodles that you can buy at your local sporting equipment store. If you're with me today, butt squeezes and pelvic tilts are great on the plate. Yes, they are, and they're good for the glutes and the core. If you're here joining me with CP questions, or you're working with CP and you'd like to use vibration at home, that's what we are talking about today. I am going to leave some time for questions at the end of it. So if you do have questions about CP, or you're dealing with CP and you want to ask me some questions, I will be talking to you at the end of my little routine here. So why do I have pool noodles? One of the other common things with CP, regardless of what type you're dealing with, as I said, is this spasticity, or the tightness in the back of the hams. And it's sometimes hard. You'll notice it's hard to walk flat-footed, or a lot of you parents are always trying to work the calves and the hamstrings to get those legs straight. So just a little add-on, depending on the size of the foot and the body that you're working with. All that this is a pool noodle that I've cut in half. I've split one lengthways. And what I would suggest with the lengthways split one is put it on the plate and just tuck it under the balls of your feet. And what it's going to do is just lift those toes ever so slightly to get a little bit more of a pull, if you're comfortable. And then when you're doing your standing positions, I think you'll notice it's going to stretch and build up those calves a little bit different. It's kind of like doing a calf stretch at the same time. So just a little add-on that you may want to experiment with at home, okay? And I'll do some more with those once we get down on the ground. Okay, so round 2, we're going to get down on the ground. I'm going to need me a mat. Now, depending on your range of motion, if you're working with children, one of the big things I like to point out to my caregivers, my moms and my dads, I get all these bookings, and when I do a one-on-one training call with some of my families, I always request that the call, if you're working with a special, I'm just going to bring my camera down here a little bit. If you're working with a special needs child, I prefer in my training sessions to work with you, the parent, personally, because what I do is I walk you personally through it. This isn't just about your child or your mother or your sister or whomever may be dealing with cerebral palsy. I really encourage this to become a family activity. So if you have a vibration plate and you're using it for your cerebral palsy, it's a family thing. If you're working with a child with cerebral palsy, you know, when they're little, it's fine. But once they get like 8, 9, 10, and they start gaining weight, your back, your shoulders, all of these things for you, I worry about you as the caregivers and prolonging your health, your wellness to take care of the child. Same goes for my therapists. You know, half of my therapists spend their day in a position like this. So that low back, the neck, the shoulders, you may not have cerebral palsy, but you can use some of the same tips I'm doing today to get rid of your tension too. So for those of you that are caring for someone and you want to incorporate vibration plates or guns that we're going to get to next, you know, use them yourself so you understand how they feel. You know, what are the thresholds of comfort? If you're dealing with a child that has, you know, challenges communicating with you verbally or otherwise, you know, it's hard for them to say it's itchy or tingly. You know, there's things that you go through when you first start using these machines that are, they're not bad things, but once you go through them and experience them for yourself, you can guide your child or the person that you're caring for, not only with comfort, but a little bit of confidence, and realize that this is just a way easier way to do the work you're supposed to be doing and to reduce the time that you're spending doing all this therapy, if you will. That's the big reason I love using these plates. Okay, so we're going to target the back of the legs specifically. So carrying on from the hamstring, or the toe touch we were just doing, many of you are not stable enough to be standing on the plate and touching your toes, or maybe there's a fear. So what I'm going to show you here, I'm a longer body, so I'm going to have to do my legs in a couple of rounds. But if you're dealing with a child or someone little, you can do probably the hamstrings and the calves at the same time. What we're going to do here for massage stretching, which is kind of a combo we're doing here, I want you getting your plate again going in oscillating mode. But when you're massaging, it's kind of a comfort thing. There is no exact setting or mode. It's really just what feels good to you. If it doesn't feel good to you, you're not going to want to do it anyways. But I find mid to high speeds are much more comfortable for the massage. They're smoother. The faster you get going, the smoother. Just like when you're standing, you can bring your feet closer to the center for less movement. You can widen it up for more movement. We're starting with the calf massage first. The heels are just poked off the edge. But because with cerebral palsy, we deal with so much tightness in the back of the hamstrings, what I want you to do is pull those toes towards you and hold for about 2, 3, 4, release. And then I want you to do the opposite. I want you to point 1, 2, 3, 4, and relax. If you're working with someone and you're assisting them, you might be sitting on the floor helping with the stretch. Very commonly when you're dealing with cerebral palsy, we don't have control over our movements and we need assistance with that, okay? I would love for this one to see about 3 to 5 reps if possible. Hold, 2, 3. Right now, there are approximately 17 million people in the world living with cerebral palsy. I want to just get back to some facts here while we're doing this. There are 4 general types of CP. There's monoplegic, which affects typically just one limb, and it's usually the arm. There's hemiplegia, which affects one side of the body, meaning the leg, the trunk, and the arm. There's diplegia, which affects symmetrical parts of the body, so both arms or both legs. Or there's quadriplegia, which affects all 4 limbs and the trunks. And right now, 1 in 4 children with CP cannot talk and communicate. So stressing my point about you as caregivers and therapists, moms and dads, need to be using these machines so you understand your own child's tolerance and how to apply for their level. Nobody knows you like your child. Nobody knows your patients like you do. 1 in 4 cannot walk. So that this getting down on the ground stuff, is really, really valuable. Types of applications when the child is little, you can just pick them up and maneuver them on the plate. So this is going to save you a lot of manual time massaging. The next one we're going to get into is the back of the hamstrings and the glutes. So again, if you're dealing with a little, you probably could have done the calves and the hams all in one rep. We're not doing this lengthways. I want you seated so that you're moving side to side. I suggest if you're working with a child or if you're very, very slim, put a mat on the machine for sensitivity to start. They may not like the mat. They may not want to use the mat after they get used to it. But to start, the surface, depending on what type of model you're using, they have different surfaces. So just put your mat on top of the machine for the first time you're sitting them on it. And then sitting on it, okay, I want you just leaning forward slightly. I want your legs straight out in front of you on the heels. Again, just like when you're standing, how close your feet are together or how wide that V is going to determine how much you're shaking. For those of you that maybe are dealing with spinal issues, fusions, you had SDR surgery, the spine is right in the middle. It's completely neutral. If you are working with a post-surgery or getting ready for a surgery situation for cerebral palsy, I do offer training and support, but my general recommendation, if you are working with someone experienced and you've been using vibration therapy prior to surgery, you're typically okay to use it within 2 to 3 months post-surgery, providing your recovery's gone well and you're able to bear weight. Leading up to surgery, it really depends. A lot of my families will use it to get ready, or as ready as you can prior to the surgery to help expedite recovery. So it depends on what we're working with prior to. 1 in 2 have an intellectual disability, and 1 in 4 are also dealing with epilepsy. So I'm going to go to the epilepsy thing. It's a big precaution for a lot of vibration machines, but it is a precaution. It is not a hard stop. If you have epilepsy, yes, you can use a vibration machine, but you need to know what you're doing, and you need to understand your child's triggers. Or if you're an adult, you should know what your triggers are. I have never had a spook in the form of epilepsy on a vibration machine. I have never had a seizure. I've never had anything like that happen on any of Lifepro's products. I do work with some of the medical devices, and unless you know what you're doing, I wouldn't recommend going medical grade unless you've got guidance. There are different settings on those machines. I don't want to say there is more risk, but there is more potential to overdo things. So I just want to make sure that if you are dealing with a medical grade vibration plate, talk to me, talk to the company. But I have never had an issue on a Lifepro plate. I've had families using these machines forever, even before I knew Lifepro, to be honest with you. The next variation on this one, and just for a basic massage, I've been sitting here for about 3 to 5 minutes, which is probably what I recommend for the max duration if you're just targeting the hamstrings. If they're particularly tight and flexibility is an issue, you can turn this into a slight stretch as well. I wouldn't do it for the entire duration, but maybe some intervals on that, okay? One last variation, there's other surgeries, there's all kinds of things that can be done with this condition. But another thing that I use the pool noodle down, and I forgot to show you when I was doing the calf massage, if you've had heel cord surgery of any kind, or they're very, very tight, which is very common in this community as well, you can also, for your calf massage, if you want to do a little round with just the heels on one of the pool noodles and do your stretches, you're just going to get a little bit deeper. What I like about pool noodles, doesn't matter if you're dealing with cerebral palsy or any kind of special need, pool noodles are a way when you're doing some of your massage and stretch positions to get into like the back of the knees or the arch of the foot where, just flat-footed, they're not physically in contact. And when you're dealing with poor mobility and, communication systems neurologically that just aren't working properly, you can't rely on your physical body sometimes to, do its job, So I like to use these not only as support aids, but they're really good if you're doing any rolling or any of those type of things. Again, a vibration machine, I always stress, is just an environment. What you do on it, you really are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. I'm going to check for questions here very quickly, and I'm going to come closer with my next favorite thing to use for cerebral palsy, which is vibration guns, massage guns. Hello. I'm going to try the pool noodle. My pool noodles. I go through pool noodles like crazy. They're a seasonal item up here in Canada, so I can't always get access to them. And I always feel bad for some of my seniors because I'll show them how to do a knee massage or get into the arch of their feet, and of course they need one. They're also hypoallergenic, and the reason I use a pool noodle versus a traditional physio noodle is when you incorporate vibration into other tools on the plate, the traditional roller, even some of my vibrating rollers, they're just too dense. They just bounce around all over on the plate. Some of your physio noodles, the foam is just too dense. Great on the floor, but when we're adding vibration, the pool noodle, the density of foam's a little bit softer, and it kind of just transmits all those micro movements up into the joints. I'll roll my shoulders, my back, my neck. I do all kinds of things on these machines, but that doesn't mean I'm going to show you on camera. Experiment. You are only limited, like I say, by your imagination and your range of motion. Who else do we have here? Okay, so I don't have any questions yet. If you do, I'm going to get to those after this next thing. Massage guns. So Deb's second top tool for cerebral palsy. Why? Well, we've talked about the vibration machines for a lot of different things. They're going to be a really great way to incorporate weight-bearing exercises, stretching, massage, just to get it done quicker, make it more effective in less time so you can have a life and more family time. Some of my families, I feel like all they do is run from physiotherapist to water, there's just so much going on in the therapeutic world. And then you're going to go home and do another 20 minutes or a half hour on a machine that can make things quicker. So if you are doing lots of different therapies, just to wrap up on the vibration machine, it's not about replacing everything you're doing. It can be if you're lacking in physio or you're not doing the exercises that you should be. It's a great way to fill the gap and do, the kids love them. They're so much fun. They'd rather do their exercises on a vibration machine. And usually the biggest problem I have with kids is they don't want to get off it. They just want to stay on it forever and ever and ever. So, kids are a different judge than us. If they don't like it, they're going to let you know. If they like it, they're also going to let you know. So they're a pretty good judge, and you can tell by the look on their face whether the verbal communication skills or not are there. I have never met a child that didn't like a vibration machine, and they love sitting on it. To wrap up the sitting on it, primarily we're doing that to relieve back tension, the hamstring tension that you guys deal with. But there's one major side bonus. I'm a mom, and I got to talk about the poop piece. So when you're dealing with a child that lives in a wheelchair or is sitting primarily throughout their day, that's, a lot of time is spending seated. The side effect is sometimes constipation. And I know a lot of you struggle with that. Many of us do. It doesn't mean that you have cerebral palsy, but one of the big side effects of sitting on the plate and doing that hamstring massage is you're going to be a little bit more, you're going to be a lot more regular. So don't be surprised if it's a problem for you, if you don't have a pretty good clean out the first day or two after sitting your little on the machine. It's very common to get things moving, and that's a good thing. So if that's been an issue for you, I absolutely, whether you need the hamstring attention or not, if constipation or urinary incontinence, any of those have been a concern, sit them on the plate for a couple minutes, couple times a day, and I think you're going to notice within a day or two some vast improvements in that area. And consistency is key. If you're finding things are getting backed up, and you notice, usually once you start using the plate in general, for most people that tends to improve, but for a lot of my little kids in particular, and a lot of my seniors actually that are dealing with that, poor mobility, spending a lot of time seated, it's a wonderful way to target that without having to use pills or drugs or any of that kind of stuff too. Okay. So vibration guns. So because you're a parent on the go, or you're a therapist that's busy, a lot of times you'd love to treat yourself throughout the course of the day. And sometimes the downside of therapy is you physically have to get in the car and go somewhere. And, sometimes you just need something on the go, or you need something to bridge the gap. So a lot of my families are using massage guns also for the hamstrings, but also in different areas. If you're dealing with a child that has poor mobility or is immobile in a lot of ways, there's still lots you can do with a massage gun to just target local areas, relieve tension. Perhaps you're warming areas up before you go into other treatments or before you're using a vibration plate. But I did want to give you a couple of tips. Did I bring my other tip? I did so. So with a massage gun, just like on the vibration machines, I'm going to sound like a broken record. It's not about starting slow. When you're dealing with a little body, or a body that's dealing with pain or deficiencies, different sensitivities, you would think again that I'm just going to start slow. But the problem when you start slow, and you'll see slow, this is my number one tip with massage guns in general. But for those of you dealing with cerebral palsy, you see what happens to my hand when it's like the slow speed? What I want you to do is, just like the machine, bring it up to a mid, even high speed. Don't be scared, but it's going to be smoother. It sounds louder, but what I want you to do is let the gun do the work. And if you are dealing with a child, they think this is like a lightsaber. Let them hold it. Let them just hold it in their hand. Is a really good way to start building those motor skills in the hands and the wrists without even using the gun yet. If you're elderly and you're dealing with arthritis, just practice holding on to it before you even start applying it. But if you're gonna be treating someone, the number one way to start is, and what I mean by let the gun do the work, I want to get the right camera angle. See how it's not even looking like it's against my skin? I'm actually holding it just slightly away, and the distance the gun is moving, I'm not pressing. See the difference on my hand? How it's, you can see that up close. I want you just slightly away, and you're just skimming the surface. Just like a vibration machine, if you start using a gun for the first time, it's new, It's going to be a little itchy and tingly. Just get used to it before you get too worried about the big protocol and what I'm supposed to do with it. And with a lot of my kids, it's going to be spasticity in the legs. So what I would suggest, if you're working with bigger muscle groups, play with your tips and see what works. I personally prefer a larger flat tip over the ball. If I'm dealing with the arms or the neck, I change my tip to the point or the ball. But if you're working with larger muscle groups, I recommend going with a flatter tip, but the speeds are the same thing. So bring it up to a mid to high speed. And all you're going to do, maybe you're laying in bed and you're doing the hamstrings. So same thing. I'm just skimming the surface. I'm not applying pressure. Okay? Just skim the surface. And if you're really, really tight and you're dealing with a lot of pain, you'll notice that once you kind of loosen up and prep the general area, you might be able to apply a little bit more pressure. And, depends on your tolerance, which may vary from day to day. Maybe you've just come from therapy and you're a lot more loose, or perhaps you haven't been to therapy and you're really, really tight. So these are really good tools. Perhaps you're traveling, for some treatment or some outpatient therapy, or perhaps you're getting ready for surgery, and not everybody can bring their vibration plate or what other tools you have at home. But the gun is a really good little tool. You don't need to suffer. You don't need to let those symptoms build and progress throughout the day. You can pack this in your gym bag, in your purse. Any of Lifepro's massage guns come with a lithium battery, so you don't need to plug them into the wall. A number of the doctors that I deal with in the cerebral palsy world recommend vibration machines and vibration guns. I'm not going to name names, but there are many children's hospitals across North America that recommend these devices. So, are they experts in vibration machines and vibration gun applications? No, but you're the only expert with your child. Anything they're showing you or I'm suggesting today are just guidelines, things I want you to be comfortable experimenting with. If you are looking for specific coaching, I do offer one-on-ones for a nominal fee, or if you're just looking for some general support, you do need to have the condition. There are some precursor questions that I ask, but I will drop a link later to my cerebral palsy plus by vibration support page, and it's basically tips on vibration machines and use. But Lifepro's own community, any of the thing that you guys are looking at here, for whether it's general fitness, whether you're dealing with special needs, again, it depends on the body and what you're dealing with. So a squat is a squat, but it's going to look different between different people. So based on your range of motion and deficiencies you might be dealing with. So my top few moves were the seated position. Like if that's all you're able to do, if you're not able to bear weight, you don't have any lifts in the house, you can start with your feet on a vibration plate and you seated on a machine. I showed you how to add a pull noodle, just to get into some crevices for maybe a little bit of extra stretching on the calves and the hamstrings. I showed you how to do a sit to stand if you are dealing with cerebral palsy or you're recovering from surgery. It's a pretty common exercise. And the problem with home therapy is it's like work. It's like homework. It's stuff you have to do. So what should I do on a vibration plate if I'm dealing with cerebral palsy? Everything you're supposed to be doing now. This is just an environment that makes those exercises, the stretches, and you've got the bonus of massage. More effective in less time. A vibration gun, it's really going to help you target those spot treatments, those day-to-day tension spots, whether you're a parent dealing with someone or a caregiver looking after people with cerebral palsy or special needs. You get your own aches and pains just by being the therapist. But these are really great to take with you on the go to your therapy sessions. Whether you're dealing with cerebral palsy or not, this is a great tool to have with you. There's no point in suffering and letting those symptoms build up throughout the course of the day. And you can even use it while you're sitting on the plate doing some of your exercises as an option as well. For those of you dealing with poor mobility or you're unable to do weights or bear much weight, most of you do have some lifts or some devices that you can use at home. Again, the vibration machine is just an environment. So put your vibration machine under your lift. If you've got a standing cage, many of the tools that you're doing your floor-based exercises on now can be incorporated on the plate to reduce time, increase effectiveness, and give you more family time. I don't want you guys spending your life in therapy. Use them throughout the day. You know, as symptoms present themselves, if you have access to your vibration machine or you have access to your gun, there's no point in suffering. There is no exact equation as to how often or how long you can use a vibration machine. You know, if it's fitness, it's kind of a different discussion, but for therapeutic use, it's really whenever you need it. But you know, you don't need to do a half an hour or an hour every time. 2 to 3 minutes as needed in complement with other therapies, or whenever you start noticing symptoms to present themselves. If balance is deteriorating and you've got to go somewhere and get to an appointment, get on it for a couple minutes before you head out the door. If you've got tightness in your shoulders or your legs before, you know, and you're sitting at the office, have your massage gun with you until you can get home and do your regular therapies, or use it as a tool while you're waiting in the therapist's office, just getting ready for your appointment. Again, you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. And all these tools, you know, I've been dealing with cerebral palsy and supporting certainly with vibration machines for about 5 to 6 years. And, you know, anything that I can recommend that's not a pill, you know, these are ingenious tools that you can do for your own self-care. And again, you know, it's not about reinventing the wheel. A lot of the stuff you're supposed to be doing at home now anyways can be incorporated with some of these just to reduce the time and boost the effectiveness. I don't know that I have any questions this afternoon. It is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, so I will post some links in the comments a little bit later today to give you a little bit more information. If you have questions specific to cerebral palsy and you were unable to ask me today, most of the tools at Lifepro can be used in some way, shape, or form. So whether you're looking at red light, compression, the vibration plates, the massage guns, I've worked with all of them. I'm getting fuzzy. I've used many of them in complement with other modalities. Sorry about the fuzziness here today, guys. Restream's not liking my face today. But you know, there's really not too much I haven't played with in the cerebral palsy world. So if you have questions, please post those, and I will make sure that I get an answer back to you. If you're looking for general support, it's not free unlimited support, but I've got some pretty good videos, and I've got a community of families that are also using vibration plates and guns to treat their symptoms, and many of them are realizing some real good results. So I'll drop the link to that group as well in the feed. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you. I'm trying to think. Well, I think I will see you later this week. If I don't see you later this week, I will be back here Monday to kick your butt in some fashion or another. Thanks for joining me so much, you guys, and have a great rest of the week. Don't work too hard.